It's not only people who are depressed. If you go out to the fields, all things are depressed. It's not only people. So how precious it is. Because Gong Thought is inherently difficult and hard to learn. If I tell people to just learn it unconditionally, it becomes hard for them to learn. So I have told you countless times so you can understand it through analogy. That's what I'm saying. Then how difficult this method of analogy is. If it's not the Buddha, one cannot use analogy. Do you understand? Try using analogy just once. Does it come out? I'm telling you, if it's not the Buddha, you can't use analogy. So if there is a sea, there would be water, right? When wind blows on seawater, waves rise. That's what I mean. But if the wind doesn't blow, there is no reason for waves to rise. When the wind disappeared, the waves disappeared too. This is analogy. Do you understand? What analogy is that? What analogy? You call it an analogy of Gong Thought? What analogy? If a person is going to speak, they must speak properly. A person who mumbles vaguely like that can't go out and accomplish great things. It's an analogy of the law of interdependent arising. Do you understand? If you're going to speak, you must speak properly. It's an analogy of the law of interdependent arising. If I just tell people to do interdependent arising, they would say, "What are you talking about?" So I also explained in detail what the law of interdependent arising is. I mean that there must be analogy. Analogy is something that cannot be used unless it is the Buddha. It doesn't come out of one's head. So, when the wind disappeared, the waves disappeared too. What does that mean? Look then, when you come every Sunday, what did you learn at the Buddhist meeting? What did you learn? That's what I'm asking. Because the wind blew, waves rose, right? But when the wind disappeared, the waves disappeared too. What does that mean? Interdependent arising? Interdependent arising? How is it interdependent arising? I already talked about interdependent arising earlier. When waves rise, waves don't just rise by themselves. The waves rose because the wind blew. So the two interdependently arise, and because the wind disappeared, the waves also disappeared. So they interdependently arose. What does that mean? If you are to receive guided reincarnation rebirth, it is extremely difficult. I'm telling you, it is not easy. It's not something where you just say go, and then it goes, just by words. You haven't understood that up to now. Then what did you learn? When I told you countless times. That's why today I am asking you this question. When someone teaches you something, you should put it in your head and not forget it, shouldn't you? So listen carefully. Because there is seawater, if wind blows, waves would rise, right? If there is no seawater, how could waves rise? So the water of the sea is Gong Thought. That's what I mean. Do you understand? Why is it Gong Thought? What did you say? Because it is always there. So when a person dies and comes back again, what did I say that is? Gong Thought. Gong Thought is that a human's flesh and bones is not Gong Thought. Do you understand? Just as waves rise when wind blows, a person's flesh and bones grows old as time passes. It grows old, but the human soul does not grow old and always exists like seawater. Do you understand? Because it exists like seawater. When a person dies, the flesh and bones disappears through interdependent arising. But the person's soul always exists like seawater, and after some passage of time, it can return again. That's what I mean. Do you understand? This is the most precious, most difficult, and highest sermon. There is only one of it on earth. When you eat rice, you hold up a rice spoon and think about how many more times you will lift this rice spoon in the future. Holy Maitreya Buddha, today I lifted this one spoonful of rice. I ate it with gratitude. With gratitude. You don't have that kind of mind. When you put down the rice spoon, you think it's over, don't you? As for the path by which you can return again, that path of being able to return again is not in you. It has gone to Gong Thought. Do you understand? Then the Gong Thought that is in your body cannot be used. It is Gong Thought that cannot be used. So who is it that makes it usable? This is the question. What's the point of having it if you can't even use it? That is why, with Buddha's enlightened light, commandments of Buddhism are given to your body. That's what I'm saying. Isn't that right? What's the point of having only seawater if the wind doesn't blow? waves don't rise and it just stays still. Do you understand? So, when you use Buddha's enlightened light to give commandments of Buddhism to the soul inside your body and put light into it, that moment is exactly when it becomes Gong Thought. Do you understand? Even if you solve what I'm saying with mathematics, it's 100 points. Try solving it with mathematics, it's 100 points. So even if you have something, there are things that are useful and things that are useless. Isn't that so? What's the point of having it? What is useless disappears with that. And what the body needs is only one thing. If I simply receive light and place it into the soul Gong Thought that I have, then within my body, Buddha's enlightened light never disappears and never vanishes. That light is precious. So, as an analogy, instead of planting beans in a field in spring, plant them in some flower pot and place them in the shade. Try planting them. Put them in the shade, only in the shade continually. Beans are beans, but they won't bear beans. If they don't bear beans, isn't planting them pointless? The owner of beans is the bean itself, the vine is not the owner. Isn't that right? So Gong Thought is something you cannot make, cannot lend, and cannot give to anyone. That is what it means that it is precious. Do you understand? The very fact that a person is born is precious. This is what I mean by precious. Because it is precious, that seed must not disappear. You must keep it for a very long time. Even though you have learned Gong Thought a lot in the meantime. When I see how you still speak, you are very dull and you do not understand well. Look, even in the same body inside me, there are fingers, fingernails, hair, and so on, right? That is how it is. These are attached because I need them, but they are not originally mine. That's what I'm saying. So the human body also has atoms and molecules. Do you understand? A fingernail is not an atom attached to my body. This is a molecule. Do you understand? Fingernails are attached in order to protect the fingers. I'm telling you, they are not precious atoms inside my body. So when you cut your nails, you don't bleed. But if you cut only the finger, you bleed, right or not? If you cut your hair, does blood come from the hair? No, it doesn't. That is a molecule. A molecule. The path by which a person can die and come again, molecules cannot do that. Do you understand? Then, when we speak of Gong Thought, the atom inside my body is the soul, as the atom. Flesh and bones cannot be the atom. Do you understand? It cannot be. So even a human body is divided, that precious and distinctly. That's what I'm saying. That's because you live carelessly. Actually, everything is already laid out. But with the human mind, you can't reach that far. So that's why everything is already laid out. So even fingernails, because this is living being, as time passes they keep growing longer. Fingers don't grow longer, but nails grow longer. After a little while they grow and get longer, and when they grow longer you cut them again. Why is that? It is because it is living being, living being. So what comes bound by Gong Thought does not become longer or shorter, but because it is living being, as time passes, when it keeps growing longer you trim it, and when it grows longer you cut it off again. That's what happens. Do you understand? So I must always be formed as Gong Thought in order to go the path I want to go. Success is also in their success as well.
56억 7천만 년 후 미륵부처님께서 오신다. 이것은 사실인가 아니면 조작된 낭설인가? 조회수 1억 회를 돌파한 한국 불교의 기념비적 법문의 탄생. 안양 수리산 용화사 용화미륵대불 특별 법문 125부. 만물의 기본 원리 공사상, 생명의 모태 광명의 빛, 살아있음의 증거 연기법, 사후 세계의 진실 윤회와 환생. 수천 년간 왜곡되어 전파된 기존 불법의 모순된 깨우침, 그 뒤틀린 이치를 바로잡다. 안양 수리산 용화상 용화미륵대불 특별 법문 125부. 지금 바로 확인하세요.
우주 만물의 법칙, 공사상. 공사상의 창시자, 용화미륵부처님의 가르침. 깨우친 부처는 몸에서 빛이 나오시며 광명의 빛으로 중생을 구제하신다. 만물을 창조하는 태양의 빛이 광명의 빛이며 인간이 환생하게 할 수 있는 것은 오직 깨우친 부처님의 광명의 빛이다. 살아계신 부처님의 광명의 빛, 그것이 곧 공사상이다. 수계를 받는다는 것은 광명의 빛, 즉 공사상을 내 몸 안에 품는 것이다. 죽음 이후 윤회는 없고 단지 모든 것은 소멸될 뿐이다. 깨우친 부처님의 광명의 빛으로 수계를 받으면 죽은 뒤에도 용화 세계를 볼 수 있는 눈을 갖게 된다. 천도와 수계는 깨우친 부처님의 광명의 빛을 통해서만 가능하다. 죽어서 천도받지 말고 살아있을 때 수계를 받아라. 보고, 듣고, 확인할 수 있는 것만을 믿고 따르라. 죽은 것은 연기할 수 없고 오직 살아있는 것만이 연기할 수 있다. 금을 인위적으로 만들 수 없듯이 부처는 처음부터 부처로 오는 것이지 기도나 참선으로 중생이 부처가 될 수는 없다. 단 수계받은 자는 광명의 빛을 받아 생불이 될 수 있다. 이 모든 공사상은 용화미륵부처님에 의해 창조되었다. 하늘과 땅, 바다와 산처럼 생명과 창조의 근원이며 한계가 없는 영원 불멸의 진리, 공사상. 용화미륵부처님의 공사상을 매주 일요일 안양 수리산 용화사에서 직접 보고 듣고 만나보십시오.
예수님의 12제자, 석가모니 부처님의 안한존자, 그리고 깨우쳐 오신 미륵 부처님의 공사상을 세상에 알린 해명 해우 스님. 출가 그리고 수행. 석가모니 불께 수기를 받고 미륵 부처님을 만나 미륵 불법을 펴기까지 조회수 100만 회를 돌파한 해명 해우 스님의 출가 수행기. 불교의 현주소. 천도되지 못한 부모님과 끝없는 천도제의 굴레. 정직한 수행자의 비참했던 과거부터 깨우쳐 오신 생불 용화미륵 부처님을 마주하기까지. 거짓 천도제와 잘못된 가르침으로부터 기도하고 빌어서는 이룰 수 없다는 진리를 깨닫기까지. 살아계신 미륵 부처님의 몸에서 나오는 광명의 빛을 처음 마주한 살아있는 증인의 생생한 목소리와 진리를 관통하는 깨우친 출가 수행기. 해명 해우 스님의 출가 수행기. 지금 바로 확인하세요.